In one Mexican gang, new recruits are forced to sever and consume human flesh before they're welcomed.
Getting like an initial ritual, like if you want to belong to these forces and stuff. And he was eating, I think it was a heart or a lung.
In another, they're compelled to kill their own parents and cut all family ties. It sounds unbelievable, but these are real initiation rituals used to test loyalty and commitment in some of the most ruthless cartels. Today, we've compiled a list of 19 of the most disturbing and brutal initiation rites ever reported. And the first on today's list is take out a rival gang member. MS-13 is a gang founded in the 1980s. The gang, which was originally founded to protect Salvadoran immigrants from rival gangs, grew into a violent criminal enterprise. In the gang, the initiation ritual for new male recruits is brutal and violent. To be accepted as a new recruit, a prospective member has to take out a rival gang member. This task proves loyalty and willingness of the prospective member to commit violence for the gang. Once a recruit carries out this order, they're put through what's called a jump-in ritual. Here, fellow gang members gather around and beat the recruit for a full 13 seconds while leaders count. Those 13 seconds might seem short, but they're intense and brutal, with the recruit expected to withstand the blows without retaliating. Only after surviving this initiation is the recruit officially welcomed into MS-13. This acceptance is usually marked by gang hand signs and acknowledgement from clique members. After this acceptance, the recruits now become free to use the gang's signature weapon, machetes. They also become free to display the gang's tattoos, MS, and use its clique names. While reports have documented female MS-13 members facing coercion or abuse while trying to join the gang, details vary widely by clique, and there isn't a uniform initiation process for women across all branches. If you thought this initiation ritual is scary, then wait till you hear about this next one. Commit violent acts against inmates or officers of correctional facilities. The Mexican Mafia, or La M, Spanish for the M, is one of the oldest and most powerful prison gangs in the United States. Formed in 1957 by a group of Mexican-American inmates at California's dual vocational institution, La M initially aimed to protect Hispanic prisoners from other gangs. However, the gang quickly gained a reputation for its violence and influence, particularly within the California prison system. The organization's recruitment process is reliant on the homeboy connection. This means that potential members are usually known to existing members as friends and can only be sponsored to join the gang by a fellow gang member. Once a candidate is sponsored, a gang chairman conducts extensive background checks to ensure the recruit is clean, meaning they meet La EME's loyalty and trustworthiness standards. In the Mexican Mafia, initiation for new recruits often involves acts of violence directed toward other inmates or even correctional officers. This brutal requirement serves two main purposes. It handles any pressing gang business and provides the Mexican Mafia with a chance to evaluate the recruit's commitment and capabilities. It also helps establish the new members' loyalty and their willingness to uphold La EME's code of conduct, called the Constitution. Membership offers status, protection, and the potential for advancement within the ranks, but with the expectation of complete obedience and commitment to La EME's rules and hierarchy. La EME's initiation ritual requires members to commit acts of violence against another person, but how does it compare to this one that requires members to endure dehumanizing acts against themselves? Bathe in members' excrement. In the Hells Angels Club, to be initiated, new members have to endure a very degrading baptism. This act, reportedly intended to test the recruit's commitment and mental toughness, involves senior members of the gang preparing a mixture of fecal matter and urine. This concoction is poured into a bucket, and the bucket is poured over the head of the recruit, who is then required to remain in the same soiled clothes for the rest of the evening without washing or changing. The recruit is made to kneel as the contents are emptied on their heads, and their hands are tied during this process to prevent them from protecting their eyes and mouth from the fecal matter. This ritual is just one of the very humiliating tests that aspiring members face. The test is meant to symbolize the endurance and allegiance demanded by the notorious motorcycle club. Though the Hells Angels publicly deny criminal affiliations, they have built a reputation as one of the world's most infamous organized crime groups. They are known for involvement in activities like racketeering, drug trafficking, and violent crime. Hells Angels surely does put its members through hell during its initiation process, but this pales in comparison to the initiation rituals of the Chinese Triads gang. Blood bonds. In the Chinese triad, particularly within the traditional 14K triad society, initiation is a very lengthy process that spans many months. New recruits begin by attending numerous lectures to learn the group's history, core principles, rules, and regulations. This initial education helps newcomers understand the weight of their commitment and immerses them in the triad's rich cultural heritage and customs. The initiation ends with a serious blood oath ritual. A small cut, usually on the finger, is made to draw blood, but for members already deeply involved in crime, a deeper cut on the head or arm is sometimes used. The blood is then used to sign a brotherhood certificate, sealing the oath with the threat of death for breaking it. Some initiates even drink animal blood as part of the ritual.
For the ceremony, there's a incense altar on the table. We have to swear a lot to the god or something, and we have to drink blood wine.
The Triads gang is involved in many crimes. They traffic drugs, move illegal substances across borders, and use extortion to scare people and businesses into paying for protection. They also engage in human trafficking and counterfeiting, as well as smuggling people for forced work or exploitation. With just a small drop of blood from the fingers, recruits can count themselves as members of the Triads gang, but it takes much more than a small drop of blood to join this next gang. Endure severe beatings while running. The Junkie Funky Kids, also known as the JFKs, are a large and active gang based in Cape Town's Lavender Hill neighborhood. The gang is always in competition for the control of the local drug trade. This has made them often locked in violent turf wars with rival gangs like the Bostons and Corner Boys, conflicts that frequently lead to bloodshed. In the Junkie Funky Kids gang, new recruits go through a tough initiation to prepare them for the gang's violent lifestyle. During this ritual, they're made to run between two lines of current members standing face to face. These members are usually armed with belts, chains, and wooden planks. As the new members run through, they're hit repeatedly, enduring painful gashes and bruises from the beatings. This initiation serves as both a test and a rite of passage, toughening them up for the dangerous turf wars against rival gangs. In the initiation rituals for this next gang, the recruits are not the targets. Rather, the recruits must make their worst enemy a target before they can gain entrance to the gang. Target law enforcement officer. The Aryan Brotherhood is an infamous white supremacist gang with origins rooted in the U.S. prison system, especially California's San Quentin State Prison in 1964. The gang was originally formed by Irish inmates who opposed prison desegregation, but it has now grown into one of the most notorious prison gangs nationwide. Their members refer to themselves by symbols like shamrocks with swastikas, AB, or the number 666. They are notorious for engaging in activities ranging from drug trafficking and extortion to male gambling, and even orchestrated hits. This gang is notorious for its blood in, blood out motto and has membership rituals that are rigorous and brutal. During recruitment, new recruits are often required to attack or kill a target from another racial group or a law enforcement official. The group operates through a diverse range of criminal enterprises, engaging in drug trafficking, male rings, gambling, and extortion within prison walls. Their operations are characterized by extreme violence, particularly as a means to send social messages. For instance, the gang's leaders are known for orchestrating brutal killings, often in front of witnesses, to demonstrate their power. Despite their notorious reputation, law enforcement officers have not been able to dismantle their operations to date. Next on today's list of crazy initiation rituals is acts of cannibalism. Cannibalism is a disturbing and gruesome aspect of initiation rites among the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, CJNG, in Mexico. This practice, often conducted within what is referred to as terror schools, involves recruits undergoing brutal and dehumanizing training rituals designed to instill loyalty and make them less sensitive to violence. These camps are set up in rural locations where the new members are subjected to extreme violence, including being forced to sever and consume human flesh. Failure to comply with these gruesome acts often results in severe punishment, including brutal beatings, and in some cases the tables turn and the recruits become the victims themselves. The process is designed not only to break down any remnants of empathy, but also to create a sense of belonging among the recruits. Those who endure the harrowing experiences are often celebrated at lavish parties upon graduation. Many people have suggested that surviving such violent rites leaves deep scars in the mind of the recruits and turns them into emotionless killing machines who are ready to follow the cartel's orders, no matter how brutal. In this next gang, recruits have to make themselves sacrificial lambs before they can be considered worthy of joining the gang. Sacrifices of a personal nature. In the Yakuza, new members known as Koban undergo a significant initiation ritual where they traditionally take a blood oath of allegiance. This ceremony may even involve mixing their blood with that of other members. Once initiated, these recruits are expected to adhere strictly to the Yakuza Code of Honor. If a Koban or recruit violates this code, they must perform a ritual known as Yubitsume as a form of penance. This involves cutting off their little finger and presenting it to their boss, the Oyabun. This act not only shows that they still remain loyal to the gang, it also serves as a way to express their regret and restore their honor within the organization. The Yakuza are involved in a wide range of criminal activities. Their operations encompass arms and drug trafficking on an international scale and loan sharking. They also engage in operating brothels and exploiting vulnerable individuals, using intimidation tactics to extract money from businesses and individuals who feel compelled to pay for protection or to avoid harassment. Of all the cartel initiation rites mentioned, this next one may just be the worst of all. Ritual consumption initiation rites within certain Mexican drug cartels, particularly the notorious Knights Templar cartel, are very disturbing as new recruits are reportedly subjected to acts of cannibalism. According to authorities, these rites involve forcing recruits to consume the hearts of children. The horrifying details of these rituals came to light during investigations into an organ trafficking ring linked to the cartel. Alfredo Castillo, the federal government's envoy to Michoacan, revealed that the cartel's leader, Nazario Moreno, also known as El Chayo, allegedly mandated this gruesome practice. Reports indicate that during initiation ceremonies, recruits would be told to eat the heart of a victim, an act framed as both a test of loyalty and a part of a very difficult ritual. Authorities believe that the hearts used in these ceremonies usually came from local children who had been kidnapped for the purpose of organ trafficking. The brutality of this ritual shows the extreme lengths to which members of these cartels will go to assert dominance and loyalty, as well as create a culture of fear and violence in their recruits. Next on today's list of brutal initiation rites is beat a person to death. Hua Qing, also known as Youth of China, is a notorious Chinese-American street gang and organized crime syndicate with roots in San Francisco's Chinatown. Founded in the mid-1960s initially for community protection, Hua Qing quickly grew into a significant player in the world of organized crime, taking on everything from extortion to drug trafficking and illegal gambling. A branch of Hua Qing known as the 510 Side, based in East Oakland, became infamous in the 1990s for its ruthless recruitment practices. Prospective members were required to perform an initiation ritual known as 23 marking. This violent initiation ritual involved beating a rival gang member nearly to death, or in some cases fatally, and marking the victim with a phrase like property of EO23 or Hua Qing. This carving, usually done with a knife, was intended as a stamp of domination, both for the victim and for the wider community. The 23 marking practice shows not only Hua Qing's violent initiation standards, but also the gang's unrelenting drive to maintain a reputation that rivals would fear, particularly those of opposing Asian American gangs. Gangs generally believe that loved ones are a source of weakness to members, but this next gang took things to the extreme with its brutal initiation ritual. Takeout Parents Boko Haram, an extremist group originating in Nigeria, is infamous for its ruthless tactics and operates in multiple African countries, including Cameroon, Chad, and Niger. Founded in the early 2000s, Boko Haram initially focused on opposing Western education, but soon evolved into one of the continent's deadliest terror groups. They often use violent tactics to recruit young people who may be abducted, threatened, and severely beaten, to strip them of their independence and force allegiance. One of the group's most horrifying practices involves a brutal initiation where recruits, many of them teenagers, are compelled to kill their own parents. This heart-wrenching act severs any remaining bonds the recruits have with their families and leave them isolated and more susceptible to the influence of their captors. Those who resist face a very difficult ultimatum: comply with the heartless initiation requirement or suffer death themselves. While many recruits have succumbed to this requirement, some have dared to be brave and have met their deaths at the hands of the ruthless leaders of the terrorist group. Next on today's list is throw fireworks at new recruits. In Taitung County, Taiwan, local crime groups have a tough way of testing new members. They use a method based on an old local tradition called bombarding Master Hondan. In this ritual, people throw fireworks at a man dressed as the god Hondan. The man wears a mask and little else, and he stands there while the fireworks go off around him. This is meant to honor the god and bring good luck and money to the community. However, crime bosses have changed this tradition into a way to see who is strong enough to join their group. New recruits must also stand still still while the fireworks explode around them. The longer they can take it without giving up, the better chance they have of becoming part of the gang. Those who last the longest often earn promotions, but they might also get burns or lose some hearing from the loud explosions. This hard initiation is a key part of joining the crime groups in Taitung, showing who has the toughness needed to survive in the world of crime. While the gang in Taiwan tests their recruits through physical pain, the Cartels in South Africa chose another horrifying approach in their initiation ritual. Forced immoral acts to join the number gang in South Africa, new members go through very harsh initiation rituals that can be extremely violent. New female recruits face a horrifying experience where they are gang by existing members as part of their initiation. This brutal act is a way to test their loyalty and willingness to endure pain for the gang. For male recruits, the initiation is no less severe. They are often required to commit acts of violence, such as assaults on prison wardens or rival gang members. This harsh requirement serves to demonstrate their commitment and strength, as well as their readiness to engage in the gang's violent culture. These initiation practices show the gang's deeply rooted code of silence and the extreme lengths that members go to prove themselves. The violence involved not only establishes the hierarchy within the gang, but also reinforces the gang's control over its members, making it clear that once you are in, there is no turning back. Ever thought an initiation ritual could lead to the death of recruits? Then you're right. Rigors of initiation leads to fatalities. The Black Axe Confraternity, also known as the Neo-Black Movement of Africa, is one of Nigeria's largest and most feared cult groups. Their initiation process is incredibly intense and dangerous, so much so that some people have died trying to become members. The rituals are not just about proving loyalty. They often involve extreme physical challenges and violence. The influence of the Black Axe stretches beyond just campuses. They have a presence in prisons, schools, and many areas throughout Nigeria. This cult operates in a structured way, similar to a criminal organization, and is known for its violent actions against those who oppose it. They have been linked to numerous killings and other criminal activities, and have even been tagged as the most dangerous cultists on Earth. Members of the Black Axe often wear specific symbols and clothing, like their distinctive berets and special regalia, which help identify them. They also swear oaths of secrecy, making it difficult for authorities to identify and combat their activities. While members of the Black Axe Court could only care less if their members died during initiation, the Sons of Malcolm X would have their recruits take out another person during initiation rather than have them dead. Commit murder. The Sons of Malcolm X, SOMX, was a violent street gang that ran a drug operation in Camden, New Jersey. During its peak, the gang required new members to commit murder as part of their initiation. This deadly act was meant to show loyalty and dedication to the gang. SOMX leaders like Enrique Perez, Bernard Murray, and Alan Resto managed heroin and crack cocaine sales across Camden, particularly around the 5th and Grant Streets area and near 9th and Cedar Streets. Violence was a constant part of their business, as they used threats and even killings to keep their drug trade secure. In 2001, the gang was responsible for several murders, including those of Rutgers students Hiram Rosa, Kenneth Allen, and Troy James. These murders were tied to protecting their drug operations. When the gang's activities became too disturbing, law enforcement, including the FBI, DEA, and local police, worked together for years to bring down SOMX. After long investigations and trials, several key members were sentenced to life in prison. These efforts significantly weakened SOMX's power in Camden, reducing its influence and stopping its cycle of violence. Next on today's list of brutal initiation rituals is endure torture to prove strength. Los Zetas started in the late 1990s as one of Mexico's most violent and feared cartels. Their name, Los Zetas or the Z's, originated from radio call signs in the Mexican army. It was founded by former soldiers from an elite Mexican military group. These soldiers were hired by the Gulf Cartel as bodyguards and hitmen, but their skills and tactics helped them rise to power. Over time, they split from the Gulf Cartel in 2010, leading to brutal fights over territory. The Zetas were very different from other cartels. They used extreme violence like public executions and kidnappings to scare people. Their background in the military made them well organized and disciplined. They expanded quickly across Mexico and even into Central America, moving beyond drugs to include crimes like human trafficking, oil theft, and extortion. The Mexican government tried to fight Los Zetas with a series of operations, capturing or killing some of their leaders. One of their most feared leaders, Miguel Ángel Trevino Morales, known as Z40, was famous for his cruelty. Although many Zetas these leaders were caught, the group split into smaller gangs rather than disappearing. These smaller gangs continued doing criminal activities in different areas. The violence caused by Los Zetas has had a huge impact on Mexico. Their fights with other cartels and the government have hurt thousands of people, forced communities to leave their homes, and spread fear. While the Zetas are no longer as strong or united as before, smaller groups linked to them still operate. Los Zetas have influenced other cartels, who have copied their violent tactics. If you considered this initiation ritual scary, then you must also be scared by the initiation ritual of the Crisps. Forced theft and confrontations. The Crips are a primarily African-American gang founded in Los Angeles in the late 1960s, with a significant presence in urban areas across the U.S. Their main rivals are the Bloods, another LA-based gang, which led to the Crips adopting blue as their identifying color, while the Bloods wear red. Members of each gang generally avoid wearing the other's color to signify their rivalry. To join the Crips, recruits may be required to complete an initiation ritual, often involving illegal acts. Initiation tasks might include theft or, in some cases, violence, though the specific requirements can vary greatly between Crips chapters. While gang life is often associated with crime and violence, the gang enjoys the admiration of many young people from disadvantaged backgrounds who often view it as a means of belonging or income despite the dangers involved. The gang culture contributes to high rates of violence and incarceration among young members, especially those recruited in their teenage years. Theft is not the only way people get into gangs. To be admitted in other gangs, recruits have to partake in symbolic burnings. The Ku Klux Klan, or KKK, is an infamous white supremacist group in the United States, known for its deeply racist, xenophobic, and homophobic beliefs. Established during the Reconstruction era after the Civil War, the KKK has historically targeted African Americans, Jews, immigrants, Catholics, and LGBTQ individuals, promoting discrimination, hate, and violence against these groups. Unlike many other gangs, the KKK generally avoids activities like drug trafficking, focusing instead on spreading hate and fear to achieve its ideological goals. To become a member of the KKK, prospects must be white, as the organization strictly enforces racial purity among its ranks. In fact, their membership requirements are so racially exclusive that any non-white attempt to join would be dangerous. One initiation ritual involves burning a crucifix, a highly controversial act in the U.S. That process is a symbol of the Klan's twisted interpretation of Christianity and an attempt to intimidate and send a hateful message to minority communities. Though diminished in influence compared to its peak in the early 20th century, the KKK still operates in small pockets across the U.S., spreading extremist views and trying to recruit new members. The presence of the KKK continues to be a painful reminder of racism and intolerance in America's history. Last on today's list of cartel initiation rituals is the Latin Kings, also known as the Almighty Latin Kings, are one of the oldest gangs in America, with roots going back to the 1920s in New York City. This predominantly Latino gang has grown into a massive organization with around 25,000 members nationwide. Known for their signature black and gold colors, the Latin Kings remain active and are involved in various violent and criminal activities. To join the Latin Kings, new members often go through an initiation process called getting jumped, where they are severely beaten by existing members as a test of their loyalty and resilience. For female recruits, there is sometimes a more disturbing initiation process, known as getting in, where they are gang by other members. This brutal method is also used by other gangs, such as MS-13. Despite efforts to control gang violence, the Latin Kings continue to exert influence in communities across the U.S., drawing new members into a life marked by crime and hardship. With this, we've come to the end of today's video. If you enjoyed watching this video, then click on any of the cards that appear on your screen to enjoy more interesting ones like this.